Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be doing a book review. The book I'm going to be reviewing today is Cherry by Lindsey Rosin. This book centres around four friends who decide to make a pact to lose their virginities before graduating high school and moving on to college. It was sort of described to me as the American Pie for girls, sort of YA edition, so I was really excited about that. This book was very funny, it was very honest, and it was really refreshing in many different ways that I'll go into later. What stood out most about this book for me was the fact that it isn't a story about the girls losing their virginities per se. It's not about the boys and the relationships, it's much more about the friendship of these four girls. The book gives you four very distinct personalities in these four characters, and it sort of shows sex through their point of view, and these girls are all very different, so that's what I liked most about it. If you are reading the book, you're bound to sort of relate to one of them. And even if you don't relate to one of the girls specifically, you can sort of relate to the experience of sharing sex and things like that when you were in high school, and you sort of remember what it was like to be a teenager, or you certainly do if you're reading it from like an older person's perspective like me. Representation in this book is great. It covers a lot of bases, whether it be sort of normal sex, LGBT sex, protection and consent, and just your sort of sexual identity, but it never sort of felt like it was lecturing or forcing a message, and that's what I really enjoyed, is the fact that the author it wasn't a sort of older author telling young girls how they should think and how they should behave. It was a lot more sort of relaxed and just very true to how girls are around this sort of subject. What's also great about this book is that it is quite explicit, and not in a sort of real graphic way or anything like that, but it doesn't sort of flirt around the edges. A lot of sex in YA novels can be very flowery and vague, and a lot of sort of metaphors. It sort of romanticises it, especially when it comes to having sex for the first time in a YA novel. Very much like films and the media, they all sort of present sex in this big way, and this book sort of it shows how it really is, how it can be awkward, and how the first time definitely sort of anticlimactic, and it doesn't always go according to plan. I was invested in each girl's stories and each girl's point of view. They all have their really cute romances to see play out, and what was great is that normally when you have four different points of view, you do sort of get one character that's a bit like, alright, move on. But with this book, there was four girls and they all had their own stories, and you cared about each one of them on their own as well as in this group, and that was great to see. Another thing I was impressed by this book is the fact it sort of questioned the gender separation in high school, and it sort of looks into how it's okay for girls to want sex. Boys are often presented much more like sexual sort of beings. You know, in high school, if I even think to my own friendship group in high school, it was always sort of the boys talking about their sexual experiences and their sexual partners, whereas the girls tend to keep it, I mean, you do sort of tell like your best friends and stuff like that. It's treated differently, definitely, for different genders. What I loved about that was the fact that it celebrated how healthy and normal it is for young girls to sort of want sex, and it was a sort of very empowering message, and I really liked that. It's definitely a great book for younger readers to read. I would say sort of mid-teens it's aimed at, because there is quite a lot of sexual language in here, but definitely I think it's a really important book for young girls to read because it is so honest. The only sort of niggle I had was with the actual sort of pact itself, the deadline inclusion more than anything else. They all feel like they need to have sex before college, and the pact was all about the girls losing their virginities before leaving high school. For a book that does so well in promoting sex in a very real way, I felt it was sort of strange to sort of imply that it's almost like saying, well, society thinks you're a nerd or weird if for some reason you haven't had sex by the time you leave high school. And maybe it was just a message I took. The book does stress that sex is a very important thing, and you should definitely not go forward with it if you aren't comfortable with it, and you should just sort of wait until your own time to do it. And it is, you know, very clear about that, and that was good. But just the fact that these girls are sort of all 18 and they're sort of desperate to lose their virginities before going off to high school, and I don't know, it was just a sort of weird little niggle for me. It was like, well what? So what if you don't? It doesn't matter. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. Like I say, for someone who isn't the target audience, I really enjoyed it, and I think younger readers would really sort of benefit from reading it. The friendship between the main protagonists is really great. The characters feel very real and like they could jump off the page, and the detail that goes into the sort of conversations about sex is very cool. It was a very sort of relatable and a very funny and honest and refreshing book. So that's all for this review. I hope you guys have enjoyed this sort of different video, and I will link some videos down below where some other wonderful booktubers have been discussing this book, as Hotkey Books are currently doing a book tour of this book. So do check those out if you have the time. Thank you so much for watching, and as ever I will see you in my next video. Bye!